Beer, Broncos, Brisbane. The three things just go together like sunshine and state of origin. But here's the thing most people don't know. If it wasn't for a beer war, we might never have had the greatest rugby league stadium in the world. Yep, today we're diving into the story of how a brewery that didn't even have a beer helped build the mighty Brisbane Broncos, and how a battle between Powers and XXXX ended up giving us the Cauldron itself, Suncorp Stadium. G'day legends, welcome back to the Old School Broncos podcast, the home for footy yarns, nostalgia and the kind of Queensland history that tastes better with a cold one in hand. We've talked about rivalries before, Cowboys, Storm, Panthers, but the Broncos' first real rivalry wasn't a football team at all. It was another beer. Before the first tackle, before the first try, Brisbane's brand new footy club found itself caught in a brewing brawl that split loyalties, stadiums, and in the end, helped build something special. This is the story of the Beer Wars, when two breweries went head to head and Queensland footy was never the same again. Let's roll back to the late 1980s. Brisbane was about to enter the big time. The Broncos were formed to bring Queensland footy to the national stage. A team to take on Sydney, to show them what was north of the border. Now, every new club needs a major sponsor. Someone to back them, brand them, and believe in them before the scoreboard does. That's where this fella named Bernie Power comes in. Bernie was a publican, a hotel man who saw Queensland beer drinkers getting the short end of the stick. The big breweries had it all stitched up. So he thought, bugger it, I'll make my own. And in 1988, he built a brewery down at Yatala, Powers Brewery. And before the first drop was bottled, he went all in on a brand new footy team that hadn't played a single game. The Broncos were barely out of the wrapper and Bernie slapped Powers bitter across the front of their jersey. That's right, Powers became the Broncos' first ever major sponsor before the beers even hit the pubs. The beer and the Broncos were born together, two Queensland underdogs taking on the establishment. It was a bold move. On one side you had XXXX, the old king of Queensland beer, pouring at every pub and at Lang Park itself, the home of footy. On the other side, this upstart brewery that dared to take them on. It wasn't just a sponsorship, it was a declaration of war, and it gave the Broncos their first great identity. Queensland's rebel team, backed by Queensland's rebel beer. By 1992, the Broncos were flying. They'd won their first premiership and Queensland couldn't get enough of them. Meanwhile, Powers was booming. Suddenly, everyone was drinking this new local beer, but down at Lang Park, the tension was at boiling point. The Broncos were representing Queensland, but every time they ran out, their sponsor's logo clashed with the stadium's major partner, XXXX. XXXX owned the ground, Powers owned the jersey. It was a full-blown beer war. The Queensland Rugby League sided with XXXX, their longtime sponsor, and that left the Broncos out in the cold. So at the end of 92, heading into the 93 season, the Broncos made the boldest call in club history. They walked away from Lang Park. They packed up their gear, their premiership trophies, and their Powers banners and moved out to QEII Stadium at Nathan. It was massive. Lang Park was the spiritual home of rugby league in Queensland, but it was controlled by the old guard. The Broncos went rogue to a bigger, newer stadium that let them run their own show. And here's the kicker. It worked. The crowds got bigger, the facilities were better, and that year they went back-to-back premiers. Still, for the fans, something felt off. QEII was shiny, sure, but it wasn't Lang Park. It didn't have the soul, the hill, the sound, the smell. It was a modern shell, not a fortress. For all the success, everyone knew the Broncos belonged in Milton, but they couldn't go back yet. While the Broncos were building an empire on the field, Powers was fighting to survive off it. The beer market was brutal. XXXX still dominated, and going head-to-head with them across thousands of pubs was expensive. Powers grew fast, too fast, and by '92, they entered a joint venture with Carlton and United Breweries, the makers of VB and Carlton Draft. By October '93, that partnership turned into a full-blown takeover. The Yatla Brewery, the one Bernie built, was sold completely to CUB. The Rebel beer had officially been swallowed up by one of the big boys. But even though Powers faded, its impact lived on. That short-lived partnership with the Broncos changed Queensland forever. It proved that rugby league was more than a sport. It was an identity. And the fallout of that beer war? It ended up changing the stadiums too. By the late 90s, it was obvious Brisbane needed a world-class home for rugby league. Something that matched the size of the Broncos and the pride of Queensland. Lang Park was falling apart, outdated and underfunded. It needed a rebuild. So in the early 2000s, the government bit the bullet and did it properly. $280 million later, Lang Park was reborn as the Suncorp Stadium we know today. A 52,000-seat fortress for the Broncos, the Maroons and Queensland footy. And when the Broncos finally came home in 2003, the Roar said it all. The Cauldron was back, louder and prouder than ever. The irony? XXXX was the Broncos' sponsor then. Their signs were back on the walls and flowing from the new state-of-the-art taps. But none of it would have happened without the beer war that forced Brisbane out in the first place. Because that move, that fight, proved to Queensland what it really needed. Without it, there's no Suncorp Stadium, no Cauldron, no fortress for the modern era. The Broncos didn't just make Queensland proud, they helped build its home. So the next time you're sitting at Suncorp Stadium with a beer in your hand, take a moment to think about it. That seat, that stadium, that sound, it all started because a bloke named Bernie Power decided to take on the system. Broncos didn't just win premierships, they won the beer war that built the Cauldron. That was the story of how beer, Brisbane and the Broncos changed Queensland forever. So what do you think, legends? Do you think the beers made a difference? And tell me, what's your favourite part about going to Suncorp Stadium? This is the Old School Broncos podcast. Let's go, Broncos.